Stand in front of a mirror and take a good look at yourself. Are you who you really want to be? Or are you just the result of what others expect from you? The truth is that most people go through life as if they were on autopilot. They wake up, follow the routine, do what they were told they should do, and deep down, they feel that something is missing, that something is wrong. But instead of questioning it, they distract themselves, look for excuses, or blame others. And so, days turn into months, months into years, until one day they realize that it's already too late. Life is like a battlefield. Either you learn to fight for what you want, or you end up being dragged by circumstances. And the worst part is that nobody prepared you for this. Nobody gave you a manual. Nobody told you what the rules that really matter are. But today, that changes. What you're about to hear is not cheap motivation. They're not pretty phrases to make you feel good for a while and stay the same tomorrow. No. Today, you're going to learn the 7 lessons you need to learn if you really want to grow, move forward, and achieve more than a mediocre existence. These are not comfortable lessons. They're not for the weak, but if you have the courage to face them, they can change everything. Because life waits for no one. Either you stand up and take control, or you'll continue to be just another shadow in the crowd. So pay attention. This is not just a video, it's a wake-up call. These are the 7 lessons that can make the difference between a life worth living and one that just goes with the flow. 1. Know who you really are, or you will be a shadow of others. Imagine one day you wake up and everything you thought you were disappears. Your name, your job, the labels that society has imposed on you. There are no social networks to show who you are, no titles, no external validations. Only you remain, naked before life. Would you still know who you are? Most people wouldn't. They have built themselves with pieces that do not belong to them, with expectations that others placed on them, with rules they never questioned. They live like shadows, reflecting what they see around them, copying trends, following a path they never chose. And the worst part is that they believe this is normal. If you don't take control of your identity, someone else will do it for you. It could be society, your family, your friends, social networks. But if you live based on external validation, you will never be free. Because real happiness does not come from approval. It comes from authenticity, not from being accepted, but from being true to yourself, no matter the cost. Being oneself is not a spontaneous act. It is a process. It is not enough to say, I am going to be authentic. And that's it. It requires questioning everything, eliminating what does not belong to you, and rebuilding yourself from the root. To achieve this, there are 3 key principles that you must apply. First, question every belief you have. Do not take for granted that what you think and do is really yours. Ask where your ideas about success, love, happiness, fear come from. Are they yours or were they imposed? If you never analyze what is in your mind, you will live under rules that you did not even choose. Second, learn to be alone. If you are always surrounded by noise, distractions, social networks, and people telling you what to think, you will never discover who you really are. Solitude is uncomfortable because it confronts you with your own thoughts without filters, but it is necessary. That's where you start to understand what you want, what bothers you, what really motivates you. If you are not able to spend time with yourself, it means that you don't even know yourself. Third, accept that you are not going to be liked by everyone. Living with authenticity has a price: rejection, misunderstanding, criticism. When you start to act according to what you really are, instead of what others expect. You make those who still live in the lie uncomfortable. Most people are not ready to see someone who does not need validation to be who they are. But here's the key. You did not come to this world to meet others' expectations. Look at any person who has achieved something great in history. Artists, philosophers, thinkers, leaders. None were accepted from the beginning, none were understood by the majority. But they went ahead because they had something more important than approval. They had identity. In the end, you have two options. Continue living as a shadow, adapting, pleasing, being a reflection of what others expect, until one day you realize that you were never really you. Or you can take control, accept the challenge, face the fear, and start living with authenticity. The first path is easy, it's comfortable, but it condemns you to a meaningless life. The second is difficult. It takes effort. It will make you lose things and people. But it is also the only one where you can truly be free. 2. Turn your falls into steps towards your greatness. Failing hurts. Falling, making mistakes, feeling that all the effort you put in was for nothing. It's frustrating, it's humiliating, it's exhausting. But there's something most people don't understand. Failure is not the end. It's the beginning of something bigger. The problem is that we've been taught to fear it. From a young age, we're programmed to avoid mistakes, to play it safe, to follow the most stable path. We're instilled with the idea that making mistakes is bad, that failure is a sign of weakness, that if things don't go as expected, it means you're not good enough. But this mindset is what keeps most people trapped in a mediocre life, without taking risks, without trying anything new, without moving forward. The difference between someone who achieves something great and someone who gets stuck is not luck or talent, it's the way they face failure. While some see it as a sign that they should give up, others use it as a step to climb higher. Failure is information, it's experience, it's learning. Each fall brings with it a lesson that makes you stronger, wiser, better prepared for what comes next. But most people don't see it that way. Most freeze, fill with fear, and let a mistake define them. They grow up believing that failure is a humiliation, when in reality, it is the best learning tool there is. Nobody becomes good at something without making mistakes. Nobody grows without going through the process of trial and error. And yet, there are people who, after a single fall, decide to give up forever. Think of any successful person. They didn't reach the top without falling 1,000 times before. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before creating the light bulb. Michael Jordan was rejected from his school basketball team. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company before returning and revolutionizing the technology industry. The difference between them and the rest was not that they never failed, but that they never let failure define them. The problem is that most people only see the final result. They see the successful person, the millionaire, the champion, but they never see everything that was behind it. They don't see the sleepless nights, the doors slammed in their face, the failed attempts, the mistakes, the moments when everything seemed to be against them. They only see the success and assume it was easy. But success is nothing more than the result of learning to fail without giving up. Every time you fail, you have two options. Let the fall bury you, or use it as a boost to get up stronger. And this is not just a motivational speech. It's a mindset you need to adopt if you want to move forward in life. Resilience is not a talent, it's a habit. It is built by facing pain, learning from each mistake, and moving forward no matter how hard it is. But this doesn't mean that failure doesn't hurt, because it does hurt. It hurts to feel inadequate. It hurts to see things not going as expected. It hurts to have to start from scratch. What makes the difference is what you do with that pain. You can use it as an excuse to give up, or you can turn it into the fuel that makes you stronger. Life is not fair. It won't give you guarantees. It won't wait for you. There will be times when you feel you can't go on, that everything is against you, that the world seems to have decided that you don't deserve to win. It's in these moments that most people give up, but it's these very moments that separate those who achieve something from those who stay on the ground. Failure is not a sign that you should stop. It's proof that you're moving forward. If you never fail, it means you're never trying anything new. You're never stepping out of your comfort zone. You're never pushing yourself to the limit. And if you don't push yourself to the limit, you'll never grow. What you need to understand is that each failure is preparing you for something bigger. Each mistake teaches you something you didn't know before. Each fall forces you to develop a strength you didn't have before. If each time you fail, you become stronger instead of weaker, there's nothing that can stop you. To achieve this, there are 3 things you need to remember every time you face a failure. First, failure is not personal. It doesn't mean you're useless. It doesn't mean you're good for nothing. It just means there's something you haven't learned yet, or something you haven't executed well. Most of the time, failure is not the problem, but the interpretation we give it. Don't see it as an attack on your ego. See it as an opportunity to improve. Second, failure is not permanent. A mistake today doesn't mean you'll always fail. Just because you failed in a business, a relationship, or a project doesn't mean you can't succeed in the future. The only thing that makes a failure permanent is if you decide to give up. Third, failure is part of the process. There's no success without mistakes, no growth without stumbling. The problem is that most people want to win without taking risks, want to achieve things without making mistakes, want to reach the goal without going through the hard path. But that's not possible. If you want something big, be prepared to fail many times before you achieve it. The difference between someone who achieves their goals and someone who stays on the way is not the number of times they fail, but the number of times they get up. Every time you face a failure, you're being shaped. If each mistake makes you stronger, wiser, and more determined, then each failure is bringing you closer to your goal. The real danger is not in falling, it's in not learning from the fall. 3. Fear is a door. Walk through it. Imagine a man standing on the edge of a cliff. In front of him, there is only emptiness. He knows that on the other side, there is something better. He knows that this leap is the only thing separating him from the life he has always wanted. But his legs tremble, his breathing becomes ragged, and his mind begins to fill with excuses. What if I don't make it? What if I fall? What if I'm not good enough? Fear is like that. It's not a wall, it's a door that only opens if you have the courage to walk through it. But most people, like that man on the edge of the cliff, prefer to turn back. They prefer to stay in the known, even if that means a life of dissatisfaction. They prefer the comfort of safety over the uncertainty of growth. From childhood, we are taught to avoid fear. We are told that being afraid is normal, that it is a sign of danger, that we should stay away from what makes us feel insecure. And while in some cases it can be useful, most of the time, fear is not an enemy, but a test that distinguishes those who move forward from those who remain stagnant. The problem with fear is that it feeds on inaction. The more you avoid it, the bigger it becomes. Every time you choose not to do something out of fear, you give it more power. It becomes a habit, a shadow that grows and strengthens with every opportunity you let pass. But the same happens with bravery. Every time you act despite fear, you become stronger. Think about it. How many things have you stopped doing in your life out of fear? How many opportunities did you miss because you hesitated too much? How many moments did you let pass because you didn't feel prepared enough? The harsh truth is that most people are not limited by a lack of skills, but by the fear of failing. And this is where most people get it wrong. Fear doesn't mean you're not ready. Fear means you're on the right path. If you want to grow, move forward, and achieve something that really matters, you must change the way you see fear. Instead of seeing it as a sign that you should stop, see it as a sign that you should keep going. Every time you feel fear, it means you're about to do something that really matters. To achieve this, there are 3 principles you should apply. First, acknowledge your fear. You can't beat something you're not even able to admit. If you're afraid to make a decision, don't ignore it. Face it and ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? Most of the time, you'll realize that the worst scenario is not as bad as you thought. Second, act before you feel ready. People wait too much. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait to feel prepared enough. They wait for the fear to disappear. But fear doesn't go away before you act. It goes away when you act. The only way to destroy fear is to walk through it. Third, remember that fear is temporary, but regret is forever. If you choose to avoid it, you'll be the same in a year, in 5, in 10. Fear lasts seconds, but regret lasts a lifetime. And on your deathbed, you won't remember the times you failed. You'll remember all the times you didn't even try. Let's go back to the man on the cliff. If he takes a step back, he will never know what was on the other side. He will always live with doubt, with the uncertainty of what could have been. But if he jumps, there are 2 options. Either he falls and learns to get up, or he crosses and achieves what he has long sought. Either of the 2 is better than staying in the same place, because fear is nothing more than a door. And the only question that matters is, are you going to cross it, or will you stay on the other side watching others do it? 4. Stop fighting the inevitable and start flowing. Think about this. You're in the middle of a storm at sea, inside a small boat. The wind blows furiously, the waves hit violently, and the rain blinds you. You feel panic, you grab the oars and start rowing with all your might, trying to go against the current, trying to maintain control. But the more you resist, the more tired you feel. The water fills your boat, your muscles ache, desperation takes over you. Now imagine another scene. Same sea, same storm, but this time, instead of resisting, you let go of the oars and let yourself be carried away. You accept that you can't fight the storm, that it's bigger than you, that it makes no sense to waste your energy on something you can't control. So instead of wearing yourself out, you use the wind to your advantage and allow the current to carry you. This is the difference between people who live in constant war with life and those who learn to flow with it. The storm is inevitable, but how you choose to face it is your choice. The problem is that most people don't think this way. Most spend their lives fighting against what they can't change. They get angry because things didn't turn out the way they wanted. They cling to what has already been lost. They get frustrated with situations that are out of their control. And all that effort is useless, because life doesn't stop for anyone. Change is inevitable, loss is inevitable, pain is inevitable. What is optional is suffering. Stoicism explains it brutally clearly. It's not what happens to you that harms you, but how you react to it. If someone betrays you, you can't change it. If you lose money, you can't turn back time. If fate takes away something you love, there's nothing you can do to prevent it. But you can choose how you respond. You can get stuck in anger and frustration, or you can accept reality and move on. Great Stoic thinkers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. Epictetus, a slave who later became a philosopher, said, "Don't seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and you will have peace." In other words, stop wasting energy resisting the inevitable and learn to adapt. But this is where most people get it wrong. They believe that accepting reality means giving up, resigning, settling. But it's not. Accepting is not the same as giving up. It's simply stopping the fight against what is already out of your control. Because what really destroys you is not the situation itself, but your resistance to it. Look around you. How many people do you know who are trapped in the same story over and over again? People who keep lamenting something that happened years ago, who are still stuck in a relationship that has already ended, who are still clinging to a failure they don't want to let go of. That resistance is what keeps them stuck. If you want to move forward, there are 3 principles you must apply. First, accept reality without drama. If something has already happened, it's already happened. If something is out of your control, then there's no point wasting energy on it. Ask yourself, can I change this? If the answer is no, then stop resisting. Unnecessary suffering is a choice. Second, let go of what no longer belongs to you. Often the pain doesn't come from the event itself, but from our attachment to how we wanted things to be. People change, money comes and goes, opportunities are lost. If you keep looking back, you'll never move forward. Learn to let go. Third, become water. Water doesn't fight against rocks, it flows around them. It doesn't resist the river, it flows with it. Rigidity breaks, flexibility survives. Learn to adapt, to move with the current instead of against it. Let's go back to the man in the storm. The one who rows against the waves until he runs out of strength probably sinks. But the one who understands the nature of the sea, the one who learns to use the wind to his advantage, that's the one who survives. In life, storms are inevitable. The question is, are you going to keep fighting against them until you're exhausted, or will you learn to use them to your advantage? 5. Success without meaning is just a golden cage. There's a man who has it all. A bank account with more zeros than he can spend. A house so large he doesn't even know all its rooms. Luxury cars lined up in his garage. From the outside, it seems he has won the game of life. But when he sits alone in his massive living room at the end of the day, he feels an emptiness that nothing can fill. He wonders why, if he has achieved everything he was supposed to achieve, he still feels unsatisfied. That's the problem with hollow success. We are taught to pursue money, recognition, power, but no one tells us that if we don't find a real purpose in what we do, all of that will mean nothing. We live in a world that has distorted the idea of success. We are sold the idea that happiness is found in status, in material goods, in the validation of others. And so, most people spend their lives chasing things without stopping to ask if they really want them. They work themselves to exhaustion, sacrifice their time, their relationships, their health, only to realize too late that they were climbing a ladder, leaning against the wrong wall. The problem is not success. The problem is success without meaning. There's nothing wrong with wanting more, with striving to achieve something great, with reaching goals. But if all that is done is for money, for recognition, to prove something to the world, you end up trapped in a golden cage. Millionaire actors who fall into addictions, businessmen who have everything and still feel they lack something, people who reach the top but still feel empty. Because success without purpose is like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors in history, understood this better than anyone. He could have had all the pleasures of the world, but in his writings, he made it clear that power, wealth, and fame are nothing but illusions if they are not aligned with something deeper. True satisfaction does not come from what you have, but from what you represent, from what you build, from what you give to the world. So, how to avoid falling into the trap of hollow success? Here are 3 essential principles. First, define your own success. Don't get caught up in the version of success that society imposes. It's important to ask yourself, what do I really want? What fulfills me? If you don't have a clear understanding of what success means on a personal level, you'll end up chasing something that will never bring satisfaction. Second, prioritize what really matters. Money is important, but it's not everything. You shouldn't sacrifice your health, relationships, peace of mind for a goal that at the end of the day won't bring happiness. If success costs well-being, it's not success, it's a sentence. Third, seek meaning in what you do. Ask yourself, how can my work, my effort, my life contribute something real? It's not about saving the world, but about doing something that really matters on a personal level. The man with the huge house and the full bank account could have had it all, if instead of just accumulating, he had built something with purpose. It makes no sense to reach the top, only to discover that it wasn't the right mountain. Because success without meaning is just a golden cage. And what's the point of reaching so high if in the end, you still feel empty? 6. The present is the only thing that exists. Don't waste it. There are people who live trapped in a time that no longer exists. Some keep reliving their past, thinking about what they could have done differently, about the opportunities they let slip by, about the mistakes they made. Others live obsessed with the future, waiting for the perfect moment to act, postponing their life with the illusion that someday they will have everything under control. But the reality is that neither the past nor the future are real. The only thing you have is the now. The problem is that most people don't understand this until it's too late. They spend their days trapped in thoughts that serve them no purpose. They wake up worried about what they did yesterday or anxious about what will happen tomorrow. But they are never really present. They never enjoy the moment. They never stop to truly live. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius summed it up in a brutal phrase: "Don't let the future disturb you. You will face it, if necessary, with the same weapons of reason with which you face the present today." In other words, worrying about tomorrow is a waste of energy, because when that moment comes, you will already have the tools to face it. And the same applies to the past. Regretting what has already happened is useless because you can't change it. So, why do we keep getting trapped in these cycles of worry and regret? Because we are afraid to face the only reality that really matters. The present. The now forces us to act, to make decisions, to take responsibility. And people prefer to run away from that. They prefer to lose themselves in memories or future plans because that gives them a false sense of control. But here's the truth. If you don't learn to live in the present, you will never live at all. You will always be somewhere else, always waiting for the perfect moment, always looking back instead of moving forward. The solution is simple, but hard to apply. Make peace with the present and make the most of it. First, stop carrying the past. It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter who you were. It doesn't matter what mistakes you made. The only thing that matters is what you do now. Learn from what happened, but don't let it chain you. Second, stop obsessing over the future. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't plan or have goals. It means that you can't live waiting for a perfect tomorrow that will never come. The time to act is now. Third, focus on what you have in front of you. If you're working, work. If you're eating, enjoy your food. If you're with someone, value them. Living fully is not something mystical. It's simply being where you are. In the end, it all comes down to a simple question. Are you living your life, or are you just waiting for it to pass? 7. Choose who walks by your side and let go of what weighs you down. No matter how strong you are, you can't do everything alone. The people you surround yourself with define who you are and how far you can go. Some will be a source of energy. They will push you, challenge you to be better. Others, on the other hand, will be an anchor, a dead weight that drags you down without you realizing it. And if you don't have the courage to let go of what's holding you back, you're never going to move forward. Here's the problem. Too many people keep in their lives those who bring them nothing, out of fear of being alone, out of misunderstood loyalty, or out of habit. They continue to carry toxic relationships, empty friendships, bonds that instead of pushing them forward, stagnate them. But here's the reality. You can't build a strong life if you're surrounded by weak people. Every minute you spend with someone is an investment. It either strengthens you or destroys you. If you spend time with people who complain, who play the victim, who view life with resentment, you're going to catch it. No matter how disciplined you are, eventually you'll absorb their energy. On the other hand, if you surround yourself with people who think big, who don't look for excuses, who demand more of themselves, you'll be forced to grow. The Stoics said that environment is key to virtue. Epictetus made it clear. Avoid the company of those who complain, of those who see everything as a tragedy, because without realizing it, you'll start to think like them. So, how do you know who deserves to walk by your side and who should be left behind? It's simple. Ask yourself these questions. Does this person push me or hold me back? Can I be myself with this person, or do I have to pretend? Do they fill me with energy or drain it? If the answer is negative, you know what you have to do. You don't owe your time to anyone. People earn their place in your life with their actions, not with their story. And this doesn't just apply to people. It also applies to habits, thoughts, beliefs. There are things within you that are also a dead weight. Old fears, doubts, insecurities that you continue to carry out of inertia. If you want to move forward, you also have to let go of that. Look at your environment. Look at what you're carrying. Ask yourself what deserves to continue with you and what doesn't. Because if you keep clinging to what weighs you down, you'll never get far.
Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.